Republican Senator from Florida, Marco Rubio. He's the vice chair of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. Senator Rubio, thanks so much for joining us. You are the vice chair of Senate Intelligence. What are you hearing about this attack, and what is your assessment of Iran's goal here?
Well, Iran's goal it has always been the same, and that is to make Israel an unlivable place. Iran does not believe that it can. Iran knows it cannot beat Israel militarily, but what it does aspire to do is make Israel an impossible place to live and a place no one wants to visit. I hear a lot of talk right now about how this was a performative attack and how none of them got through, and this is all great. It's good that those strikes did not get through and harm anybody. But what do you think the tourism numbers are today in Israel and in the next couple of weeks? What do we think the business numbers are going to look like? All of this is harmful to the Jewish state because that is the goal of Iran ultimately. And that's why they want us out of Iraq. That's why they want us out of Syria. That's why they want to overthrow the king in Jordan. And that's why they want to continue to surround Israel from Gaza, from Lebanon. They aspire one day from Jordan, from Syria, from Iraq. Have all these proxies that are able, and then from Iran now, able to attack Israel and make it an unlivable place so that the Jewish state will collapse from within economically and socially. That is their goal. That is their aspiration. That is why many of those drones had lights on. So you could see them coming in and the terror aspect of that. And that's what we need to understand here is that at the core of all of this is not simply to respond to the death of an IRGC killer, but it is also to continue to move forward on this plan to make Israel an unlivable place.
We're waiting to see how Israel responds to this attack. Iran is already warning that any Israeli retaliation will be met with a more severe response from Iran. You called this the most dangerous moment for the Middle East since 1973. What do you think Israel should do?
Well, I'm not going to tell Israel what to do because I'm not the one that was attacked by 300 rockets and missiles and drones. I do know that Israel has a very clear military doctrine, and that is that they respond to attacks by responding to those with something much more severe. It is how they have survived. This is a country, a Jewish state, that on its very first hour of existence was attacked from multiple directions by multiple countries, and it has not stopped since then. They have faced constant existential threats to their existence on a repeated basis throughout their history. In fact, their history is defined by that. And so they have made the decision in their military doctrine that they respond to attacks on Israel disproportionately. And it is the reason why we have not had another 1973 or 1967 situation. Now, look, I imagine that Israel does not want a full-scale war either. And one of the ways they've prevented it in the past is through the kind of deterrence that comes from firm attack. So I expect that they will respond. I don't think they're going to ask us, nor do they need us to help them in that regard. Ours has been largely a defensive posture. What I don't understand is why Joe Biden and the administration would leak to the media the contents of a conversation in which he tells Netanyahu he doesn't think Netanyahu should respond at all. It is the continuing part of this public game that they are playing, which frankly encourages Iran and Hezbollah, which we haven't even talked about, and the Houthis, and all these other elements that are targeting Israel.
Your leader, Senator Mitch McConnell, says the first order of business in Congress is for the House to pass that foreign aid supplemental bill that passed the Senate months ago, which includes funding for Israel as well as Ukraine and Taiwan. Do you agree?
Well, I know when it comes to Israel, the House has on, I think, 2 occasions now passed Israel funding. It sits languishing on the floor of the Senate. I know there was an effort by Senator Roger Marshall to pass Israel aid. This was a couple months ago. It was blocked by the Democrats. So yeah, we could go on Monday to Washington, D.C., and we can pass aid to Israel right away.
What about the House acting? The
House has already acted, and I imagine if the Senate were to send the House an Israel aid bill on Monday, the House will pass it. I have little doubt about that because they've done it already before.
You don't support tying it to the Ukraine aid?
Well, the problem with tying it to the Ukraine aid is that, as we have said very clearly, and I think there's any mystery here, I, for one, and not everybody, but I, for one, am prepared to help Ukraine, but I want to see us deal with the southern border. And that was the negotiation, that was the talk, that was the agreement, that's what was going to happen. And it didn't happen. What they came up with was unacceptable when it came to the border. But I remain a supporter of helping Ukraine, but I'm a big supporter, an even bigger supporter of helping America. I'm an American senator, and so I hope those two things can happen in conjunction. But when it comes to Israel This is something that has long enjoyed strong bipartisan support. We can vote on it on Monday. It should be able to pass unanimously. If not, we should take votes on it. And I am confident the House will pass it very quickly thereafter because they've done so already.
Iran says this attack, and you already alluded to this, was in response to the alleged Israeli strike on the Iranian embassy complex in Damascus, Syria, in which at least 7 Iranian military officials were killed, including a senior IRGC official. What do you say to those who wonder if Israel crossed a line by targeting an embassy? And what do you say to those who say that that gave Iran no choice but to respond?
Well, first, I think that they're misinformed. What was hit was an annex building next to a consulate. It was an annex building occupied by IRGC agents who are they are on the ground in Lebanon every single day, coordinating and helping Hezbollah and others in the region attack Israel. I think lost in all of this, we talk about the 300 launches against Israel yesterday. The night before, just the night before, 30 to 50 rockets were launched from Lebanon by Hezbollah against Israel. There are close to 90,000 currently internally displaced Israelis that cannot return to their homes in northern Israel because it is under constant bombardment from Hezbollah. How is Hezbollah attacking them? They are using the targeting information being provided by those IRGC agents, the weapons being provided to them, and these long-range missiles, rockets, and precision strike weapons being provided to them by those IRGC officials. This is almost a daily occurrence. It almost is like, oh yeah, there was another 50 rockets yesterday. Those are the guys running that. And those guys are legitimate military targets, and they were struck in an annex building that was near the consulate. That's what that was. So yeah, I mean, you're attacking Israel. We're just going to let those guys sit there behind some desk and continue to coordinate the delivery of weapons and intelligence information so that Israelis cannot live in the north. It is part of the strategy. And this idea that it's just like the Soleimani stuff where all these people are around crying because Soleimani was killed. They called it an assassination. This guy, his hands were drenched in the blood of Americans because of the IEDs that they helped provide in Iraq during that conflict. These people are legitimate military targets.
Your colleague, Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, called on President Biden to, quote, move quickly and launch aggressive retaliatory strikes on Iran, unquote. Do you support U.S. strikes on Iran? And if not, how do you think the Biden administration should respond?
Well, I support defending American troops in the region. You know, we have people stationed in the region in multiple countries, and we sent them there. Whether people like them being there or not, the bottom line is we sent these young Americans there, and our job is to protect them. So I'm in favor of doing anything we can to protect them and prevent them from being attacked. But Israel is not asking us to launch attacks on Iran. I have ever heard the Israelis come to us and say, will you help us or will you attack Iran or go in after Iran? They're not asking for that. They're not asking for it. But I think we go from that to the other extreme, which is Joe Biden telling Netanyahu, take the win, don't do anything. And then his people leaking it to the media, leaking it to the press. And what it sets up is they know that Israel's going to respond. They know this for a fact. So why would the White House leak it? There's only one reason they leak that. And that is that so when Israel does respond, the White House can say, we told them not to do it, and at least somehow, in some way, appease these so-called peace activists, by the way, these ceasefire now people who were out yesterday cheering the launch of hundreds of rockets and drones and missiles against Israel. People that are out there cheering military attacks of this scale and scope are not peace activists. These are anti-Semites, anti-Israel, pro-terrorist elements out there, and we need to stop calling them peace activists. They are not peace activists. Peace activists do not cheer massive attacks against other countries, which is what they were doing yesterday. So I guess this is part of the White House's effort to appease them by putting this out there proactively.
Senator